France, down in Nice. And so we would tend to go there as a rule because it was a safe place. But we took great care, and Natasha took a lot of care as well. She was very conscious of her allergies.
And during all this time bringing her up, you're a successful businessman. You've got a toy business.
Yes, it is. When I think about it, it's strange that I started my life as a toy designer. I'm in my mid-50s, and I'm still, in one way, a toy man. But yes, my background originally is designing most of Action Man toys and most of Cindy dolls and My Little Pony. Where I came from, running a company there, would design all those things. And at some point in my early 30s, got fed up with that and decided to start my own toy company. They're aimed at children of 1, 2, 3 years of age, and everything is indestructible. Everything's mechanical.
A little man in there.
A little man that can go inside. And children just love putting things in and out, learning hand-eye coordination, using their hands and their eyes and their brains to figure things out.
The mics are off now because we're doing the Emperor Johnny show. And we don't need the mics, we're not recording it. It's on there.
And again, she arrived here around.
The mic's not on. The mic's on.
In the 60s. Late 30s, early 60s.
That's on, but it's recording through there. It's the Emperor Johnny show. So I listen to this, and if I hear anything, then I just tune in between 5 and 6. And it's the Emperor Johnny show.
You're doing good, man.
Actually, we have some quite experiences from
I like it.
and
Good meditation.
especially when
This
Second
is what I want.
Second World War.
This is the type
So,
of
Our house
I
was
want from my
completely
parents.
non-religious.
You can
And
relax.
never once
You
stepped
dedicate
foot
yourself.
in
I tell you
church.
what you can try and
Other
do
than,
there.
I think, odd
Try and read my emails.
So would you describe yourself
Try and get an
growing
email.
up then as
Can't you get an email account now?
I'm going to say the word atheist seems very
So
strong.
when I said
But
all I
I
was saying,
suppose, yes, I thought
when I said up,
functional need
all I was just saying,
of God, and it wasn't
I knew
very
like when
even
we
in
were
that
having
round.
kind of a right, it's
Never have imagined any kind of religious experience
what we did.
Gosh, not at all. I found that
So all I was saying come to me for all these days.
any experiences
Right,
I
come
had
in.
that were tend to be things I'd almost created for myself, self-made, if you like, but not anything supernatural anyway. No, that sounds ridiculous to even think that from the past.
Can we go back now to that flight that you took to Nice? We looked at those lovely pictures of holidays in Nice. So this was another holiday, another lovely holiday it was supposed to be.
It should have been a fantastic time. Natasha had planned this with her best friend Bethany, who was 14 at the time. The two of them would go away. That was one of us parents. To the south of France, that Natasha could show Bethany
we were
what
shot 10
great
minutes time.
summers she's done.
Yeah.
Because Bethany had never travelled abroad.
Come back later, yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. And Tanya stayed here with Alex, our younger son, because some friends from France were coming over to stay. And we were due on the first flight out to Nice. The two children, Natasha and Bethany, laughing and giggling because they're so excited to be alone with each other, not at school, and going on what would be for them at that age like the most amazing trip of their life, basically. At the airport, before boarding the plane, we decided to grab something to eat. And unbeknown to us, the sandwich that we bought, Natasha, contained a lot of sesame seeds, to which she was severely allergic to, because it didn't mention this on the packaging. And I looked at it, very used to looking at food for Natasha. Absolutely, very careful. I mean, to a degree that is unimaginable, probably by most other parents. All looked fine. Nothing to the eye looked untoward at all. And Natasha started to feel unwell.
Yeah?
Feeling a bit
I like it, I know. Try and support me if you can. If you support me, then it will help me, it will help, I suppose. Because if I can keep the weed in stock,
She took some
then one day that weed will be something that I'll just give you when we're working, innit?
And as we were
If you can support me.
since the flight, she became more and more unwell. But she was sort of putting a brave face on it. She was so excited.
And if I can get the business up, if you know any decent people you want to bring around.
So she had more irritant. At this point, I didn't think anything was, overly untoward.
Decent customers, or tell me that just to meet them at the gate, and I'll just meet them at the gate.
Later, she said, "Daddy, I'm not feeling
They're not trustworthy.
in such a serious way."
If you have this last week, I will make you make money. Well, you know I like to buy from you straight.
Yeah.
Straight. I will never call anyone. Why so have? I know I will get from you. I more trust to get smoke from you more than just go around and smoke.
Genius, that's not as good, you know.
Yeah, no one can play with your things. I know when you have your things locked, no one put their hand there. And it's just you alone, and it's you deal with love. You just put it on natural.
Yeah.
Everything is natural. That's why I like to get things from you. I don't have to worry. I don't want no things from anyone joining to my career right now. I have to be careful. Because too much corruption. Corruption spreading more than anything else.
I said, I think you need to give me the.
And you cannot live and don't think about it, because they will step on you.
And that's the thing that's going to save your life.
Yeah, when you see it, you have to look.
To counteract the allergic reaction. So I stopped and I
that's why I like to be around love. Everywhere I see there is no love, I'm not going to do it. I'm gone.
Okay.
If you was here with other people, I'm gone a long time. It doesn't cause me and you alone. I like to be like this. A lot of people would like me to come around them, but I don't want to go around them. I know who God said me. I must choose my God in me. He said who I must choose. Many times I tell you I'm coming down here, I don't get to come.
Got this subject I jabbed it into the thigh.
Say I come now, I get to find out everything you email me, a lot of things I don't get there. No, you showing me your catalog with the shows there, just like now.
You want to see my reports and stuff?
No, not really right now, John.
I've got sales reports, I've got
I'm gonna leave it then.
I've got a report for the money. So if someone puts money in, I can record what they put in.
I got the second.
I can record what I'm taking out, what comes in as cash, what comes in as a bank transfer. I'm recording all this stuff.
He's got to do it. 2 injections of adrenaline of adult size.
He's a man out of the shape. He's a
Within a minute,
living
she was falling
person.
unconscious, slumping in front of
That's why I really like you.
You earned some money already, do you know that? Last week you earned some money, and I made some sales.
Yeah, that's good.
Not a lot of money, it was less than a penny, but
Yeah,
I only made 20 quid.
you still make something.
So I quickly opened the door, called the steward. I said, "Can you help me? Can you help? My daughter's not in a good way." So we lifted her out. We put her sitting in the jump seat just by the door.
I don't know if I make sales this week. I'm going to wait and see.
And I said, "Get the oxygen mask now. Get it now." And within a minute, I had the oxygen mask on Natasha's face. But the mask kept falling off her face because she was just literally flopping down like a loose doll. And this is horrific. I didn't appreciate it up the spot. All her airways internally, throat, so on, were all narrowing down and closing up so the air could not pass, almost like sort of swelling up rapidly at great speed inside. So the allergic reaction she was having to something she'd eaten was huge and overwhelming, massive, like a tsunami smashing against her. She started to fall unconscious, properly unconscious, within 30 seconds, a minute. That's the rapid onset. And she was now non-responsive. And I said, "Please make a call on the PA for a doctor, anyone medical." And out of the blue,
I'm trying to set up a distribution network. A distribution network is people that you trust. You could do this yourself. Set up a distribution network, and then you give a license to the people that you trust.
Weekend.
You give them a license to sell the music, and then they're supposed to survive off the money and then give you up to half.
They can't imagine what would have happened otherwise.
You know what I mean? You're trying to help them out.
Natasha on her back in the galley. Meanwhile, incredibly, the cabin crew keeps serving the drinks.
You got mates that you got any mates for network?
Really quasi
Friends, a network, mates, friends.
Now in saving somebody's life.
Not really, no.
Child, and yet the cabin crew are sort of trying to carry on.
Hmm?
Really
friends, you know, like people, friends.
Yeah, yeah.
We've got a network.
Get angry.
Like,
As if
Like people you trust.
it's just like,
situation.
it's just like WhatsApp people see when I just deal with people.
You don't trust people, don't you?
They just deal with people as control anything.
But do you know who you can trust? You know who you've known for years.
Yeah. Just like when I know you and I put your thing on that.
Okay.
Yeah, man, I just people.
What you can do is give them a license.
Try to do an
And
emergency.
I've emailed you some music already.
Trying to date, I know in retrospect.
You can email them, and if they earn any money, if they sell 2 copies, they will give you £1 back. When they sell 2 copies, they give you £1 back. And then if they sell, they got to survive off their money. But once they survive and they're not greedy, and you know they're not greedy, they'll give you up to half back. They should do, because it's on my label and on your label. Like your track, you can release on your label if you want.
Seeing that suspended disbelief, really, that things have gone so far, I couldn't have ever imagined them going.
But you're supposed to give me half the money as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you're going to do it, but you're going to have to work out some sort of deal.
Yeah.
Where we go, maybe 3 ways. Maybe we'll go 3 ways, Barry. We'll split every pound into 3. 33.333.
Seen the sandwich myself.
I can do the sum on my spreadsheet.
That caused that to happen. Anyway, yeah, it's I'm not a medic. I can't help. You know, I don't.
It's not a problem.
CPR problem.
No, it's all right, man.
I'll make a spreadsheet for you.
Yeah.
You follow it, and then you email it to me, and then I can.
As soon as we
It's only once a week you got to do it, or once a month even.
All I did.
You just email me the figures, and then I'll calculate the rest of it from that.
Talk to her. No,
And then we'll work out who owes you what money.
Voice, Tasha, I love you.
Yeah.
Your daddy's here with you. I'm not going to let you go. How you've got to fight on. You've got to fight on like you.
But you need a
How
bank.
station this?
Pardon?
How station this?
Radio 4. Have you got a banking app on your phone?
All the time.
You need to get a banking app to do this business. Which bank are you with?
We're with NetWest and we're with Nationwide. They tell me long time to do online banking, but it's like, you know, like when you put out all my interest.
Let me show you something, Barry.
Yeah, we're just coming from
Came back with substrate. And they were sweating.
See here's my account. That's because of my heating bill I got that in there. And that's the business account. Now £100 of that is shares. £39 I could transfer into there because it's money I've earned. I've got to leave at least £1 or 2 in to pay you guys what you've earned already.
We all did high five together.
This is earnings that I've been earning. £100 I put in there, they're the shares. They're the shares.
And they kept it the
CPR,
they kept it.
I can't drop below 100. If people want to buy their shares back, then I mean, if they want to sell their shares to me, back to me, or if I whatever, I've got to have £100 in there all the time. And I have paid some people. I can show you on the computer, but you don't want to look. But it's as easy as this. If I click on that,
you see when we have to look on certain things, you have to have on the glasses. Nasty the word.
see, look, this guy's paying £10 there and £10 there, £5 there.
Never taken my eyes off it.
And you can filter transactions to go in. So that's just in. And then you can go,
strong,
you can filter them to go.
soft yellow light, like rather like a
Filter
candle.
transaction out.
But it's really intense, but not
£4.92 to Facebook. I did an advert on Facebook.
Great detail. It's fine.
You can do adverts on Facebook. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Thin people.
So we can advertise your business, and that's the sort of business.
You know, but this technology, this is what we should be going into long time, Johnny, because no one teaching me like what you're teaching me. No one trying to show me the road of
Well, I'm showing you now.
Yeah.
I'm showing you.
Yeah.
Because,
You know, because even my wife,
look at this. If I want to do this, manage,
human being,
pay.
so much micro detail there. And the
I can add you, add select payee. I can add your account, add new payee. Friends and family, I call them. What's your payee name?
Seen anything like that?
Payee name.
On your card, have you got a card?
Card in there.
I can put in the numbers to pay you.
Yeah, I understand.
And then I can just,
Wash them like that away.
I can just go to people I want to pay and just pay them.
Yeah,
Wash them away.
Yeah.
It's not her time.
I see.
And as I did that,
Online banking.
they were gone. And Natasha.
Or you can do,
And the paramedics just.
or what you can do is
There's nothing more that could be done.
transfer,
I was so taken aback.
select account. Well,
Did you have any sensations when you were seeing them? Did you feel you were in another state?
select account.
I just was so shocked, stroke surprise, stroke, but no anger. I was just, oh my gosh, type of thing.
Can you describe
Oh,
in a bit more detail? I mean,
So we can do it from this account.
Any angels
So
you've seen?
I can transfer.
Paintings? Do they
Like,
reflect those
okay, let's
body?
click on that. So I can
Previous
transfer from there to
I would
this
say
account,
these
and then you just enter the amount, and then just send it.
I just go straight.
Yeah. So it's really handy to have two accounts with one bank.
Just one account. Yeah.
You know what I mean? One bank, two accounts. And then one account is the money that you can spend, and another account could be your business account. Now, for your business account, you need to have a minimum in there all the time.
That is.
Mine's £100, my minimum, and that's because of the shares. And there's no cost. There's no turnover cost.
No.
But in your business, you need the flour, the potatoes, the cauliflower, all that stuff. So you might need £100 in your bank account all the time as well. And whatever that amount is, that's what you need there. So that's what's called your working capital. Now I'm going to expand my working
That's why I
capital.
have all my receipt and stuff.
I'm going to expand my working capital because I invest in things like this. So in my business, there's a 20% business charge,
Possibly the most soothing,
which I haven't taken off
the
actually.
most amazing light.
So never mind, we'll start doing that soon.
It doesn't really exist.
Just live it same way.
And then the 20% business charge goes on the PA,
Exactly like that.
on the maintenance.
Yeah.
You know,
Literally
the-
Yeah.
and make
and so we can improve.
Yeah.
that it would be
Yes,
like
John.
seeing
That's
a
right.
photograph that was
Yes.
so much
And then we go 50-50.
high definition television.
That's
Even though that
it.
doesn't
But
actually.
you're talking the truth. You're talking the way how it's supposed to be.
I'll do it from day one.
Yeah, man.
I'll do it from day one.
Yeah,
They
man.
were
Whatever Simon pays me, I'll take 20% off, put it in a separate account, or to grow this business.
Mhm.
They were rather all the same.
20% growth.
I mean, anything happen, you have money to back it. For one of the amps, something wrong with one of the amps. You
Yeah.
can't fix it. You have to have it money. Yeah.
Big wing.
I don't want to reduce that to 10%, but because I made such a payment this year,
I was very surprised.
actually I don't know because
Actually, by what
I don't need to pay petrol anymore.
big sense.
I might make it 10%,
of
Barry.
reflection just after.
I'll do my maths. I might start at 20%, and we'll soon move to 10%.
You know, my.
Maybe 10% would be alright.
Looking at books or
If I get 100 quid, 10% would be 10 quid.
10%.
10 quid would be alright. And then we can go 45.
Straight.
bigger, choppier.
That's on the first 100.
Yeah, man.
Is that
Now go over the shop and then link you back and come on.
And then if I pay you a little bit of money like that, you
You
can
don't
come
want
and
no money.
do your show.
Use the money, alright. Just use the money. Don't give me no money, Danny. Don't give me no money.
Huh?
Just do what we have to do. You understand?
Yeah.
Like this. Do what you have to do, man. Because you see,
Well, I'll give you a split or something.
listen to me, Johnny. Just do what you have to do. But this is we're not doing this with me. I'm coming here to.
that size.
Majority can you say I come here?
Doesn't
If
necessarily
you
need to
have
be
to
always that
put
size.
my
I
brains
think
in
the whole
the right
supernatural
direction
part of
towards
this is
something that I can
possibly
do
be
to
anything
change it, my
that
life.
is
You
appropriate.
understand?
Okay, what we'll do next time then, we'll produce a track day. Next time we'll produce a track.
I know you said this for me, and you know you uplift me. So
I'll get a room, I'm gonna write it down for you.
you know,
I'll write it down for you so that I don't forget.
yeah.
Full clothes that you and I would look at each other now.
You see, all these
Wearing a
things,
jumper.
all these things. You have the book,
Pieces.
write down things.
So things in the way that we have and recognize ourselves, but with these incredible wings on the back. But I can't say more than that because I was looking across at 5 different angels, all moving and looking at me, but not smiling. Just, I would say, relatively expressionless, if you like.
Somewhere else.
But what's so powerful is that I can still see them.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for Johnny, man. I like him what you did here, Johnny.
How are they moving?
Look
They sort
over
of flapping their wings.
I'm blue pen one, Irish friends. Not sure.
Yeah, black and red and blue.
They were
We
actually.
can do it later.
It'll turn up, don't worry, I won't forget, I'm gonna remember that. The trust with them. Trust with them, don't worry, I'll remember that.
Like a standing position.
Alright, thanks all, Barry, yeah?
One lying down in a line, and they're all effectively floating in front of me, and all moving up and around, all differently across Natasha's body from head to toe, rather like this. So that's
Moving your hands just around and around, so they were sort of going.
randomly, if you like, all with their own sort of beat to it, or sense of movement. But they were calm, it's a complete calmness about them. There was no fluttering or manicness. It's like they had come to do a job, they knew what they were going to do, they were waiting, and then they did their work, just to take Natasha away to heaven.
So they were making you feel they were waiting to take her soul to heaven.
Very much like they were there as guardians. You had a feeling that they were there with a mission and a purpose.
Did anyone else see those angels?
No, nobody else saw those angels.
Some people might wonder whether under that moment of extraordinary stress, unimaginable stress that you were under, that you simply had a hallucination, that you thought you saw angels.
Yes, I think for people who don't believe really, have any faith really, like I was at the time, would possibly, I can understand why they would question. But what I saw, was it not a hallucination or some kind of fantasy or something to help me cope, as a father with what was unfolding in front of me? And those that know me well know that I barely drink. I never smoked a cigarette. At all in my entire life either, and I'm not on any kind of medication. So from a sort of doctor point of view, I'm probably the least likely person on the planet to have any form of hallucination for that reason. And knowing myself, as I do, and my friends know and my family know, that I am not prone to such things at all, ever. In fact, I've never had such a thing happen to me. In fact, moreover, I've always been quite calm and stalwart in the moments of, I would call it, adversity or stress, of which I've had quite a few in my work life, family life before. So to those that might still say, well, I still don't believe you, I would say, well, what have I got to gain by making this up? Nobody's paying me to say this. I say this freely, and in fact, I say this even at the risk of sounding foolish or like an idiot. I actually don't mind if people think I'm an idiot or a fool in saying this, because I know it is the truth. And the truth is the only thing that counts. And the truth ultimately is always undeniable. And I would die for saying that truth today. No one can tell me I did not see that.
And do you know why you saw them?
At that moment, I couldn't tell you in the moment it happened. You didn't have that ability to reflect on what was essentially a calamitous situation. But afterwards, I know that I was meant to see them. No one else saw them. It was just me. I was someone who was not a believer at all, and someone who was a bit, frankly, too full of himself, too arrogant a man, really, coming from the business world. I think a lot of people in business, men particularly, would say, I will make myself who I'm going to be in my own strength. And if nothing else, that whole situation showed that I was completely weak and unable to do anything, even for my own family, to save them. And I think in my lowest moment of that is when God sent angels for me to see and to tell, it's okay. The angels have come, or I've asked them to come, to go and take your child's soul to heaven. And all that would happen to me in the following months and years, recent years, she's died 3 years ago now, would be in my own discovery to find out more about God and Jesus and the reality of it all.
Hello and welcome to the World of One. Pret-a-manger labelling was inadequate. That's the finding of an inquest into the government, and he was right to the Environment Secretary, Michael Gove, requesting. We have obviously to look at this issue. We have to look at responsibility of individuals. This is something that has been an absolute tragedy. As I say, our sympathies and our condolences are with her family and friends.
I remember during the inquest, which turned out to be a really big inquest with most of the UK media present and reporting on it by the hour for the lunchtime news, etc., etc. It was a really difficult time. We were in the court every day for 5 days in a row, and I would go to the toilet, I remember, and I would get on my knees and just pray. Please bring everything here into the light, all that is hidden. And it did, credibly so. Again and again, things came out that were being tried to be hidden by various companies or parties. And it was just unbelievable what came up in the court, in the wash. And I remember just 6-7 weeks after Natasha's inquest had finished, Theresa May, who was then the Prime Minister of the UK, actually mentioned Natasha at the Tory party conference. She spoke how terrible the situation was and how things must be changed in the UK. And I was so taken aback, the leader of our country actually mentioning our daughter's name and how strangely significant that was. And yet so many people die every day in one tragic circumstance or another in the United Kingdom. And I was at work that day, and I remember going downstairs to the ground floor, which was really dark because none of the lights were on, and also it was winter time. And I remember crying slightly as I gave thanks to God. And suddenly the whole room lit up, went like someone had put the light on, but not the normal light. It was a soft yellow light, again, that I remember from seeing the angels. I was so taken aback. I remember going, oh my gosh, what's that? And as I did that, the light went. And then it dawned on me very quickly afterwards that this was God saying, I hear you, my child, I'm with you. It doesn't change the fact that Natasha's dead. It doesn't bring her back. It's not for that, but it really made me feel that I have a father, someone bigger than me, someone thankfully stronger than me, someone with no ego like me. And it's such a relief to know that there's someone else there that takes care of it all. And you don't need to be like that. You give it up, basically, if you like. It's a road to nowhere.
So what changes did you make? I mean, you've had the most extraordinary conversion, haven't you? How has your life moved forward in a different way now?
It wasn't as simple, though. It wasn't just like to be totally upfront. I had anger about my child dying. I was angry with God sometime after it was born. It was terrible, terrible. And I did rage, but then I calmed down and we started going to church, actually. In fact, the church that Natasha was going to for about a year before she died. And only a few months before she died, she actually said that she wanted to be baptized of her own accord. And I'd never been going myself, and I really wasn't interested at all. But the weekend we came back with Natasha's body in the aeroplane, we went to that church, and we've been going ever since. But I do know that our child, Natasha, was spirited away to heaven by angels, taken her. And I do know, hand on my heart, that she's there in a wonderful place, without any suffering. And I know in my heart that I will be with her when that time comes to pass. I know that 100%. And there's a lot of relief there for that. A lot of relief that I'll find that true happiness with the things that matter to me the most, like children, In my past years in business, I've stood on the stage with David Cameron as Prime Minister, or with Gordon Brown in the Treasury to give speeches, and being awarded an MBE by Buckingham Palace for services to business. Many of these things serve you very badly when it comes to building up arrogance, if you like, and I had a good dose of it, frankly. And I look back at all that now and I go, none of it matters. It's completely irrelevant. And all that really matters is having that strength of faith, giving it to God, our problems in life to God, and asking for help.
And you're now working, aren't you, with a foundation looking at research into allergies to try and help other people who have similar conditions.
Yeah, that's right. So all of us as humans, we have a choice after something calamitous happens in our life. A choice to do something or to do nothing. After seeing what I'd seen and being given that message, if you like, and all that has come to me since, personally, but not just to me, but also to Tanya and our son Alex. And we are steadfast now in our mission, and we feel that God is really with us, and that's what really powers our battery, to be honest. We don't have it in our flesh, our blood and our bones, enough of what it takes, in our material self, to try and save the lives of thousands of people who have food allergies.
You've managed to change the law, haven't you?
Yes.
It's an easy thing to do.
Yes, I mean, people will look at us and say, absolute disbelief. How on earth have you changed the food labelling laws in this country so quickly? And how on earth have you met with senior government ministers, Secretary of State, multiple times, the leaders of some of the world's biggest companies, board of directors? We know in our hearts that only God can do that. If I tried to do that, as I have in my business life, to achieve things, I probably wouldn't even achieve 1% of that. And I would also then become a very broken and unhappy man. But now I'm a very happy man in the sense that I have grief. Yes, we have grief, but happy that I feel really at one with God. We've been to a very low place. It couldn't get worse. And in that moment, God has come and lifted us, supported us. And he carries us forward to bring about massive, dramatic change to people who have food allergies, to make their lives better or to save them from dying. And if I said anything else, I would be lying.
You've done a lot of interviews since Natasha died. Now, why did you feel that you didn't want to talk about it? Because people might think you've lost your mind.
Before I saw that in my normal life, I was very conscious of what people thought of me. Definitely, because I had an image to protect, if you like, and I'd cultivated an image as well, like a lot of people in the forefront of some industry or whatever, and would never want to look foolish in any way. However, with what I've seen and what's happened to me personally, knowing there's nothing worse than your child dying in front of your eyes, and there is nothing worse than that. I'd much rather die myself many times over than that I am compelled and want to tell whatever has happened to me in the most truthful way, without embellishment, so that others can hear it. And I think that's what I'm really called to do.
In Other Light, Emily Buchanan was talking to Nadim Ednan Gafous. The producer in Salford was Amanda Hancock, and the editor was Christine Morgan. Details of organisations offering information and support with bereavement are available at bbc.co.uk/action line, or you can call for free at any time to hear recorded information on 08000 158 707.
Rehabilitating women, the separation of generations.
All seaside towns have changed.
The catastrophic decline in New Zealand's food life.
Food waste.
Radio 4 grapples with 5 21st century problems.
We're looking for radical ways to stop this overflow of consumption to enable our native species to thrive. Everyone's got a role. We all need each other to achieve this.
Figuring out fresh solutions.
Britain's become very divided, but here little pockets of sweetness, actually.
Positive Thinking on BBC Radio 4. It's Monday to Friday morning at 9. And now Profile with Mark Coles.
Every Christmas, the people of my village tell a story about how a little girl many years ago saved our village and everyone in it.
It was one of BBC TV's big Christmas Day specials. Sir Michael Walpurgo, one of Britain's most celebrated storytellers, bringing us a new film adaptation. His 2014 children's book, Mimi and the Mountain Dragon. Here's a quick synopsis.
It's about a small girl who lives in a village with an ongoing fear of a dragon who lives on a nearby mountain.
Thanks, Sam. Mimi and the Mountain Dragon is one of scores of books the former children's laureate has written over the past half-century.
It must be getting on for about 180, something like that. It's a lot of books.
War Horse, Private Peaceful, 2 books set in the First World War. Running Wild, about the 2004 Boxing Day tsunami. The Butterfly Lion, informed by his own experience at boarding school.
And a lot of Michael's stories do seem to revolve around the sadness and the loss of you being split up during wars.
Taking children to the heart of the most profound and complex issues. He's the David Attenborough of storytelling. His story begins at the height of the Second World War. Born in St Albans in October 1943, he grew up in London around bombed-out buildings. His parents, Mum Kipper Commerce and Dad Tony Bridge, were both actors, but their marriage didn't last long. Another casualty of war.
His father was a soldier, working class, married his mother, a rather frail character. She had a huge breakdown while she was still in her teens, and by the end of her life she was an alcoholic and not a happy person at all.
Maggie Ferguson, who wrote Walpurgo's biography From War Child to War Horse.
While Tony Bridge was away fighting in the war, she was introduced to Jack Walpurgo, and he fell for her immediately, and he was going to have her. He just stole her away. That was when Michael was 2 years old. So he grew up with Jack Walpurgo effectively as his father, and his own real father was simply airbrushed out of existence, never spoken about.
Until one day, 17 years later, he suddenly reappeared in black and white in the front room.
One evening we were gathered around the television Christmas Eve. I was 19. We were watching the BBC serial. It was Great Expectations. And there's this moment at the beginning where people coming through the graveyard, the wind whistling around the gravestones. And out from behind this gravestone reared this terrible figure. And my mother grasped me by the arms. "Oh my God, Michael, that's your father." It was my father, Tony, playing Magwitch.
His stepfather, Jack Walpurgo, had been a Royal Artillery Major, later became a university professor. Michael's older brother, Peter.
He was very domineering to both of us. He was not an easy man. He was not somebody who encouraged us in any way. In fact, at his funeral, rather poignantly, many of the people were former students who came up to us saying, "We've just got so much to thank Jack for." We thought to ourselves, well, why the hell did we start at home?
Storytelling was encouraged at home, largely thanks to Michael's mum, who was Desert Island Disc programme in 2004, would read to him over and over again.
She made me feel that there was music in words. When I was extremely small, I used to sit in bed and say the word Zanzibar, rocking record, Zanzibar, Zanzibar, Zanzibar. And one day I was going, Zanzibar, marzipan, Zanzibar, marzipan. I did love playing with words.
He was sent to boarding school in Sussex, hated being away from home, he told his biographer, Maggie Ferguson.
The prep school that he was sent to when he was 7 was extremely strict, and the boys were beaten a lot. And after being beaten, they had to say, "Thank you, sir," to the master who'd beaten them. And they were beaten if, for example, they'd been asked to learn a poem and they got a word wrong. Michael became so frightened of these beatings that he did develop this terrible stutter.
At the King's School in Canterbury, in his early teens, he became more confident. He excelled at rugby, sang in the choir, was head boy for a while, which came with perks, recalls school friend Peter Campbell, who's known him for 63 years.
used to have access to a key to the cathedral. He would grab the key and say, come on, Peter, let's go. And we're going to have fun in the cathedral on our own. He would practice the lesson, and he didn't seem to be nervous at all, and read very eloquently and very well.
But he wasn't academic. His stepfather took to calling him a bear of very little brain. It's Brother Peter again.
He wanted us both to go into the academic world. Neither of us were fit to go into the academic world, it has to be said. But no, he wanted Michael to go into the army, and in fact, Michael went to Sandhurst.
Not for long, mind.
How big of a friend? Tell me how you feel. Tell me love is real.
At 18, Walpurgo fell in love with Claire Lane, the daughter of Sir Alan Lane, the founder of Penguin Books. It was Claire who made him question whether Sandhurst was right for him. Over to you, Claire.
He went on an exercise. It was incredibly cold. It was January, and they had to dig slip trenches. And he was looking out across this expanse with the enemy, and they were all shouting horrible things to these young officer cadets. And it was quite scary. And I think he thought, I'm not sure this is what I want for the rest of my life.
They decided to get married, which was strictly against the rules of Sandhurst.
So he had to go and tell his commanding officer that he was going to get married. And the commanding officer wasn't pleased at all and tried to dissuade him. And he said, no, I made my mind up. Michael had to pack up and say goodbye to anybody. He was put in disgrace from that moment on. Now, if you look at his records, there are no records of him being there at all. They completely erased him from the records in the army.
They married in 1963, quickly, far too quickly, he says, and 3 children, Sebastian, Rosalind and Horatio, all named after Shakespeare characters. Floundering a bit in his 20s, not knowing what to do next, Michael went to study at King's College London, ended up with a third-class degree and drifted into teaching. His approach had tad unorthodox at times, says Maggie Ferguson.
One of the schools that Michael taught at was a boarding school, and it was next to an old people's home, and the children, they used to dare each other to climb over the wall into the old people's home in the night and wander around. And if they were caught doing this, they were punished severely by the school. But if Michael caught them doing it, he said, I don't mind at all if you climb over the wall and muck around next door, but you have to write a poem about it.
Michael Walpurgo started writing it himself while teaching at a primary school in Kent in 1970. His wife Claire remembers it well.
He sent the first story in hand, and I remember opening the envelope in the car, driving the children to school. They said yes to the first story, and if you'd write 5 more, they'd give him £75.
His early books didn't sell well, soon out of print, and when Claire's father died in 1974, they used her inheritance to buy a small estate in North Devon, which they turned into a charity giving inner-city children experience of the countryside.
In 1976, January, the first children arrived from Birmingham, and we've kept going ever since.
Almost 100,000 children have been to stay in the 4 decades since. In the early years, the experience helped Michael's writing. He wrote more than a dozen books, many of them about children and animals, including one about a farmyard cat called Montezuma. Then in 1982, his biggie, the book he's become famous for, the story of Joey, a horse bought by the army to serve in World War I, and the attempts of his young owner to bring him back home to safety.
He wanted to write about a horse because we had horses. He first of all talked to the old men of the village, who at that time were still alive, had been at the First World War, about how the men felt about their horses, how they talked to them at night. And Michael still worried a little bit that it wasn't going to work. Every week we have children come stay at the farm. Every Thursday evening he'd go down and read them a story. He noticed as a child, leaning over one of the stable doors, he suddenly realised that a child who had not spoken all week had said a word. The teachers had said to Michael, he's really an elected mute, he doesn't speak. And he had his head over the door talking to the horse, or Hebe, and the little boy was talking and telling Hebe everything he'd done on the farm. And Hebe's ears were pricked up, and she was listening. Suddenly Michael thought, yep, and that was about the wars.
The horse is an absolutely unimpeachable witness to the horrors of war.
2 decades later, Tom Morris would direct the National Theatre's stage adaptation of War Horse, using enormous puppets to tell the tale.
The first thing I said to Michael when we spoke on the phone is the book that he's written, War Horse, the horse tells the story. He said, how are you going to do that? I said, well, we want to do it with a puppet, but at which point he was looking pretty perplexed. And I said, the horse isn't going to speak. At which point he just looked at me as if I was mad.
Despite that, the play was a huge success, the National's most successful production this century. In 2011, it took on another life.
There was a joke in the family that when the phone rang, even if it was in the middle of a meal, Michael and Claire would say, better answer, might be Spielberg. They kept on doing this for several years, and then one day the phone rang and they said, better answer, might be Spielberg, and it jolly well was.
Steven Spielberg turning War Horse into a Hollywood movie, making Michael Morpurgo a household name, bringing him a new audience eager to discover other books he'd written. Many of them are about war or tragedy, the suffering of the survivors. Theatre director Tom Morris again.
His family was fractured, and loneliness and rejection and misunderstanding are part of the print of his experience. And he recognizes those pressures on other people and tells a story which therefore resonates.
Morpurgo's biographer, Maggie Ferguson.
His ideas come from all over the place. So he wanders about like a kind of water diviner with a sort of stick, and then he sort of circles around an idea. He calls that his dream time. He ponders the idea, he turns it over and over. I think it can sometimes take years. When he then decides it's time to start writing, he sits on his bed.
We used to write with those fiber tip pens, which leaked empty. I've got a few very faded ink blobs on sheets now. About 15 years ago, I said to him, I think maybe Billy Barrows.
In 2003, he became Britain's third children's laureate. Last year, he was knighted. Now, Sir Michael Morpurgo, God of the imaginary cat. Though he's not perfect, far from it, says wife Claire.
He can have his off moments. He quite likes to be grumpy. That's a good grumpy. He's very untidy. Puts things down and then he can't find them.
But he does have style.
He bought a red jacket, and I think it made people smile. And he must have got about 20 of them in various stages of disrepair. And red trousers. He wears red shoes. And a red hat. Actually, it's a blackberry. It's a blackberry. He was looking at something this on the way here on the tube. These are bright red trains. So I'm going to see if I can find them online.
Now 76, he's at an age when many people start thinking about slowing down. He's written about the experience of aging for Radio 4.
Strange thing, getting old, because I never thought it would happen to me. Well, it has. And quite suddenly, too.
He's had cancer of the larynx, recently being given the all clear, but it did prompt him to take up his love of singing again.
Oh, where have you come from? And where will you go?
He recorded this especially for us, a favourite, to which he's written lyrics. Now grown up, he has 8 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild. Still writing, as prolific as ever. There have been 2 books already this year, The Day the World Stopped Turning, and Boy Giant, about a 12-year-old. And he's got another story on the go about children.
Keeps me going. Young, bright, new hope, new energy. Feel the enchantment and excitement of the game. To share it. Its glow.
He just has these stories inhabit his mind, and he just has an urge to share them. And I don't think that will ever go away so long as he can hold a pen.
Oh, your papa, to your mama so dear, they'll be watching and waiting. No more sorrow, no more fear.
Profile was presented by Mark Coles, the producer, Sweet in the Town. And now the shipping forecast issued by the Met Office on behalf of the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency at 1725 on Sunday the 29th of December. There are warnings of gales in Trafalgar, Hebrides, Bailey, Faroes and South East Iceland. The general synopsis at midday. ULO expected Sol 1016 by midday Monday. Low just south of Iceland 974, moving steadily northeast and losing its identity. The area forecast for the next 24 hours. Viking, north at Cirra, south at Cirra, 40s, Cromarty. Southwesterly, veering westerly later, 5 to 7, decreasing 4 at times. Perhaps gale 8 later in Viking. Rain or showers, moderate or good, occasionally poor at first in Viking and north at Cirra. 4th, Tyne, Dogger, Southwest veering northwest later, 4 to 6, occasionally 7 at first, mainly fair, moderate or good. Fisher, German right, southwest 5 to 7, veering west 4 to 6 later, rain later, moderate or good. Humber, southwest 4 to 6, good, occasionally poor. Thames, Dover, White, Portland, Plymouth, south or southwest 3 to 5, occasionally 6, except in White and Portland. Mainly fair, good, occasionally poor. Biscay, southeast Fitzroy, southeasterly veering southwesterly 3 to 5, fair, good, occasionally poor. Northwest Fitzroy, southerly 4 to 6, veering southwesterly 5 to 7 later, perhaps gale 8 later. Rain later, good, occasionally poor. Seoul, Lundy, Fastnet, south 4 to 6, mainly fair, rain later in Seoul, good, occasionally poor. Irish Sea, south 5 to 7, becoming cyclonic 3 to 5 later, mainly fair, good, occasionally moderate. Shannon, south becoming cyclonic 4 to 6, occasionally 7 later in northwest, occasional rain, good, occasionally poor. Rockall, Malin, southwest veering north or northeast 4 to 6, increasing 7 at times, rain, fog patches in south, moderate or good, occasionally very poor. Hebrides, southwesterly veering westerly 5 to 7, occasionally gale 8 in north, rain, showers later, good, occasionally poor. Bailey, southwest 7 to severe gale 9, veering northwest 5 to 7 later, showers, good, occasionally poor. Fair Isle, Faroes, southwest veering west 6 to gale 8, occasionally severe gale 9 in Faroes. Showers, good, occasionally poor. And Scotland, southwesterly 7 to severe gale 9, veering northwesterly 4 to 6 later, showers, good, occasionally poor. And that completes the shipping forecast. Now we'll look at the more general weather forecast. Here's Sarah Keith-Lucas.
Thanks, John. Well, it's been a very mild day out there today. In fact, Castley in Sutherland, northwest Scotland, had temperatures at 16.8 Celsius at 3 a.m. this morning, and that is the highest temperature that's ever been recorded in the UK, quite so late in the year. And a fairly quiet, mild spell of weather continues in the run-up to New Year as well. Some rain in the northwest of the UK at times, but for much of England and Wales, certainly, it is looking dry over the next couple of days. So for the rest of this evening then, and we are going to be seeing some rain, initially for the Western Isles and the Northern Isles as well. That rain just drifting a little bit further south through tonight. So by the end of the night, there'll be a bit of rain go down towards Argyll and Bute. But for the rest of the UK, it is looking dry out there. Some clear spells around. Temperatures for Scotland and Northern Ireland overnight down to around about 7 or 8 degrees, so quite mild here. England and Wales, where we do see the skies clearing, we can just see a touch of frost, particularly parts of Northern England, Midlands and North Wales too. Should be frost-free, I think, further south. Now, Monday's weather then, starting off across all of England and Wales, it's looking like a dry day, quite a lot of cloud, bit of mistiness here and there through the morning, but some sunny spells too, and highs up to around 13 degrees. For Scotland and for Northern Ireland, we've got a band of rain pushing slowly south through the day, fairly light and patchy. It'll be sitting through Northern Ireland and southern Scotland by the afternoon. Highs of 7 or 8 in the north, 10 or 11 in the south.
Thanks very much, Sarah. The 6 o'clock news coming up soon, but first a look ahead to Jerry Northam's standout offerings from the past week's radio.
Ken Dodd goes 15 rounds with Her Majesty's revenue and wins. Darcy Bustle recalls the agony of dancing on tiptoe, and Bruno Toglioni celebrates the ecstasy of opera choruses. Spike Milligan lampoons the creation of Northern Ireland's border. Icelanders lament the melting of their glaciers, and Glenda Jackson finds the Holy Grail in an Oxfam shop. Join me, Jerry Northam, for Pick of the Week this evening at 6:15.
BBC News at 6 o'clock. This is Kathy Clugston. Good evening. The governor of New York State has described a knife attack at a rabbi's Hanukkah party as an act of domestic terrorism. The United States has attacked Hezbollah forces in Iraq and Syria after an American civilian was killed in a rocket strike on Friday. One of its of Scottish literature, the novelist Alistair Gray, has died. And in sport, an England batting collapse and a victory to South Africa in the first test. The Governor of New York State, Andrew Cuomo, has called for tougher domestic terrorism laws after several people were stabbed at the home of an Orthodox rabbi last night. The attack in Monsey, around 30 miles north of New York City, came during a celebration for the Jewish Hanukkah festival. In the past hour, the suspect has appeared in court and pleaded not guilty to 5 counts of attempted murder. Our North America correspondent Chris Buckler reports.
Members of New York's large Jewish community had gathered to celebrate their religion, only to be attacked because of it. A man walked into the home of a rabbi in Monsey, where dozens were marking Hanukkah, and started to stab people. Aaron Cole was in the house and tried to stop the attacker.
And he started to run into the big room, and I threw him tables and chairs that he should get out of here. And he injured a guy. He was bleeding in his hand all over. I ran into the other room because I tried to save my life.
Monsey is just north of New York City. The police there had stepped up patrols because of a series of anti-Semitic attacks in recent weeks. Steve Gold, who's from the Jewish Federation and Foundation of Rockland County, says it's an issue that desperately needs to be addressed, particularly after shootings at synagogues in the US this year and last.
It's horrible. You know, my parents were survivors of the concentration camps, and they told me how fearful it was to be Jews. And they always said, you can't let it happen again. But I'm scared that it's happening again.
Many claim hate is on the rise in an increasingly fractured America, where polarized politics appear to be having an impact on society. The governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, said racism, homophobia, and bigotry were poisoning the country.
It is domestic terrorism. These are people who intend to create mass harm, generate fear based on race, color, creed, and I want this state to be the first state to have a domestic terrorism law.
President Trump has been criticized for fueling division with some of his policies on immigration and comments that critics claim were designed to appeal to white nationalists. That's strongly denied by the White House, who point out that earlier this month, Mr. Trump signed an executive order to tackle anti-Semitism on college campuses. This latest attack will only lead to calls for more to be done.
Police are investigating anti-Semitic graffiti which was sprayed on a number of shop fronts and a synagogue in North London last night. The Star of David appeared on several properties in Hampstead and Belsize Park, alongside the numbers 9/11. Officers say they're treating it as a racially motivated hate crime. US forces have carried out a series of attacks against sites in Syria and Iraq, operated by an Iraqi militia group that's said to be backed by Iran. The Pentagon said the strikes were a response to recent attacks by the Qatar Hezbollah organization, targeting bases in Iraq where US personnel are stationed. Our Middle East analyst Alan Johnston has the details.
They hit the Qatar Hezbollah militia in 5 places, 3 of them in Iraq and 2 in Syria. The Pentagon statement said the targets included weapons stores and command and control facilities. The statement described the operation as defensive and aimed at deterring the militia. The Americans blamed Qatar Hezbollah for a string of recent attacks on bases they use in Iraq. These included one a few days ago in which a US civilian was killed and several servicemen wounded. The Americans had earlier warned that there would be a response if they continued to be targeted in this way. The Pentagon statement described Qatar Hezbollah as being closely linked to the elite Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, and there's no doubt that this American attack will further ratchet up the already very high tensions between the US and Iran.
The Kremlin says President Putin has telephoned Donald Trump to thank the United States for providing intelligence that helped to foil terrorist attacks in Russia. Quoting the Federal Security Service, the Interfax news agency said 2 Russians have been arrested in connection with an alleged plan to attack large crowds of people in St. Petersburg during the New Year holidays. Russian-backed rebels in eastern Ukraine have exchanged 200 prisoners with the Ukrainian authorities in their first swap for 2 years. Most returned to the rebel-held areas of Donetsk and Luhansk, with just over a third heading the other way. Here's our Europe regional editor, Mike Sanders.
The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky made an election pledge last spring to resolve the crisis in eastern Ukraine. Swapping prisoners is a means to that end, but it's far from universally popular. It's already been criticized for offering a high degree of autonomy to the rebel areas of Donetsk and Luhansk. The exchange compounds the impression that he's giving too much away. Some of the prisoners sent back to Ukraine were merely civilians in the wrong place at the wrong time, like Victoria Voronina.
I was sentenced to 12 years in prison for state treason in the so-called Luhansk People's Republic. I came to visit my parents and unfortunately wasn't able to leave the city. At the time, my child was 2 years old and has been waiting for 3 years for their mother to come back.
By contrast, among those returned to the rebel areas, 5 were former members of the Berkut riot police, accused of firing on pro-democracy demonstrators in Kyiv in 2014. A crowd tried in vain to block their departure from prison. Victims' families have written to President Zelensky warning that their release could spark a wave of protests.
Tens of thousands of people in the Australian state of Victoria have been told to evacuate as bushfires intensify in the region. Officials have warned that tomorrow will be a day of extreme danger as rising temperatures combine with thunderstorms and a change of wind direction. Tom Horrigan reports.
In recent weeks, New South Wales and South Australia have borne the brunt of the country's current bushfire crisis, but now Victoria is in the front line. The focus of concern is East Gippsland, around 220 miles east of Melbourne, where 3 large fires are burning in a drought-hit forest. It's thought around 30,000 tourists are currently staying in the area. The local Emergency Management Commissioner, Andrew Crisp, urged them to go elsewhere.
What we're saying now, based on the conditions that will be confronting us across the state, but in particular in East Gippsland, is that if you're holidaying in that part of the state, it's time that you left.
Extreme fire warnings are in place for much of Victoria, while organisers of a music festival in the seaside town of Lorne have cancelled it for safety reasons. More than 100 fires are continuing to burn across Australia, and with temperatures forecast to rise above 40 Celsius once again, many areas are bracing themselves for another challenging week.
One of the most significant figures in Scottish literature and art, Alistair Gray, has died a day after his 85th birthday. He wrote more than 30 books, including the dystopian fantasy Lanark, and was an accomplished painter, creating numerous public murals in his native Glasgow. Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, led the tributes, describing Alistair Gray as a true polymath and a decent, principled human being. Alexandra Mackenzie looks back at his career.
Alistair Gray has been described as a literary giant and a cultural trailblazer. He was born in Glasgow in 1934, a city where he spent almost all of his life. In the 1950s, he was a student at Glasgow School of Art. He also began writing his award-winning novel Lanark, which was published in 1981 and described as a masterpiece. He went on to write more than 30 books, including the novels Janine and Poor Things. Many he designed and illustrated himself. In 2012, he explained to Radio 4's Start the Week how his writing had evolved over time.
The first and earliest stories are full of extravagant fantasies, weird cultures, gigantic vertical cities. The later ones describe, I should say, more ordinary people. Going back as you get older and older and older. The last book of short stories was called The Ends of Our Tethers, because they seemed to me all about men of about my own age, or a bit older.
He also made his name as a painter. Murals can be seen across Glasgow and in galleries, including the V&A. The author's family described him as unique and irreplaceable. They said he wanted his body to be donated to medical science. The Scottish author and friend Ian Rankin was one of many who paid tribute.
Up into his 80s, he was still writing, he was still putting on exhibitions, he was translating Dante, he was doing all sorts, and he was still, of course, very passionate about politics and questioning about politics. And so we've lost all that, which is devastating, but of course, the work remains.
Alistair Gray was a supporter of Scottish independence. He wrote a book titled Why Scots Should Rule Scotland. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon said on social media that everything he wrote reflected his brilliance. She said, "Today we mourn the loss of a genius." A lawyer for a British woman whose husband and 2 children drowned in a swimming pool in the Costa del Sol on Christmas Eve has said she may pursue an independent investigation. A Spanish police report said tests had found nothing wrong with the pool and suggested that Gabriel Dia, his 9-year-old daughter and 16-year-old son, had got out of their depth. But the lawyer for Olubumi Dia said something very strange had happened, and she wasn't satisfied with suggestions it was a simple accident. French and British Coast Guards have returned more than 30 people, including a pregnant woman, to France after 2 rescues from unsafe vessels in the Channel. So far this year, more than 1,800 people have attempted the crossing, more than 3 times the total for 2018. Here's Simon Jones.
Making the most of calm seas and mild temperatures, 3 more boats set off from the French coast in the early hours of this morning. The first got into difficulty when its engine broke down off Calais. There were 11 people on board. A second boat carrying 20 people, including a pregnant woman, was located off Dunkirk. It was taking on water. 1 man had to be resuscitated after suffering a suspected cardiac arrest. A third boat was intercepted by the border force. More migrants have now succeeded in making the crossing this month than in December last year, when the government declared a major incident.
Police searching for a firefighter who's been missing for 9 days have released what they believe is CCTV of him on the night he disappeared in Lewes, Sussex. They say Anthony Knott walks with a slight bounce in his step and hope the video will jog the memories of local people. Mr. Knott, who's 33 and a father of 4, had been out drinking with friends when he left a pub in the town for reasons which are still unknown. Sport now, and with details of the England cricket team's defeat and the latest from the Premier League, here's Dominic Busby.
South Africa have beaten England's cricketers to win the first test and take a 1-0 lead in the series. Joe Root's team began the day on 121 for 1, needing a further 255 runs for victory, but collapsed to 268 all out, losing eventually by 107 runs. Our cricket correspondent Jonathan Agnew reports from Pretoria.
England deserve credit for the fight they showed today. This was no pushover in awkward conditions. They made South Africa fight for every wicket. The damage had been done earlier in the game, not least bowling first on the broiling opening day, and only the wildest optimist gave them a chance of reaching their target today. The pitch was spiteful at times. Root took a number of blows to the hands, and England will be hoping there's no serious damage. Burns, Denley and Stokes also battled away, while South Africa maintained a ruthless stranglehold. Ultimately, this match will be remembered for its chaotic preparation, illness to players and Stokes' father, which rocked the team. As they move to Cape Town, they'll be hoping to leave the mystery bug behind them.
In the Premier League, Chelsea came from 1-0 down to beat Arsenal 2-1 and consolidate their 4th place in the table, with manager Frank Lampard admitting he had to have an honest chat with his players at half-time.
It was so awful for 30 minutes. We were slow, we were lethargic, we were nervous. Can't come to the Emirates and expect you're going to get anything if you play like that. So players were told that and they delivered.
The runaway league leaders Liverpool are currently beating Wolves 1-0, and Manchester City are playing Sheffield United at the Etihad. The score there at the moment is 0-0. To Rangers, where they've recorded their first league victory at Celtic Park for 9 years after winning the Old Firm derby 2-1. Ryan Kent and a headed winner from Nikola Katic sealed the victory that takes Rangers just 2 points behind the champions with a game in hand. And finally, in Rugby Union's Premiership, Exeter beat bitter rivals Saracens 14-7 at Sandy Park. The result takes Exeter back to the top of the table.
Dominic Busby. One of the stars of the West End musical Everybody's Talking About Jamie has publicly criticised an audience member who filmed the entire first act of last night's performance on her phone. Bianco Del Rio tweeted that the woman had distracted the whole cast and those sitting next to her, adding that people shouldn't treat the theatre like a cruise or a theme park. The headlines again. The governor of New York State has described anti-Semitism as an American cancer following a knife attack at the house of an Orthodox rabbi. Andrew Cuomo said it was an act of domestic terrorism and called for tougher laws to prosecute such crimes. The US military has conducted what it describes as a series of defensive strikes against sites in Syria and Iraq, operated by a militia with Iranian support. And tributes have been paid to the Scottish novelist and artist Alistair Gray, who died at the age of 85. BBC News.
And the news was read by Kathy Cluxton. Now ready at 4, Pick of the Week with Jerry Morgan.
At the beginning of this comfortingly festive week, I tuned in to a drama called Happiness.